waiting for Disney to realize the get woke, get broke syndrome. Third season of The Mandalorian was fairly well messed up because of agenda. And I think Jon Favreau has got that fixed for season 4 of The Mandalorian. Ahsoka, throughout the Clone Wars, no problem at all. She was a very well-respected character. Ventress, great villain. I remember the original Star Wars. I remember coming to the movie theater when Empire Strikes Back was released and having to wait in line for a couple of hours in order just to get in, because you couldn't buy advance tickets. You had to go to the theater to do it. You had to buy the newspaper was the first chore and the first task to find out. And everybody really bought the newspaper at that time. There was a big backlash in the theaters that people were sabotaging the film, pulling the fire alarm, lighting for sprinklers or something like that, calling in bomb threats to try and get people to not go see that movie. Who's trying to prevent this movie? What evil must enthrall them that they would try to prevent The Sound of Freedom from being played or being released? I think we should honor all history around the world. And of course, there are bad parts of history. The generation before me was the generation of Vietnam draft, and the generation that still understood and knows what World War II was and had people, World War I veterans and people that lived through that. They're people that, a little bit older than I am now, were around for the Great Depression and around for both of the world wars and the Korean War and Vietnam. And those were very different than, because once you hit the Desert Storm in the 90s, that war was a little bit different. It was a lot more technological war. The war in Iraq, different. Afghanistan, like a lot more troops and really fighting and suffering and those things. But each of those segments is just very different and produces very different type of people. We've got a new Ahsoka trailer. We're going to watch it right now.
War is inevitable. One must destroy in order to create. We are no Jedi.
I started hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
What happens when we find Thrawn?
Power, such as you've never dreamed.
I've spent most of my life fighting a war. That's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one. You and I both know who could help you with this.
She's still just as stubborn as ever.
I bet your master found you difficult at times.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.
You never made things easy for me, Master.
As a Jedi, sometimes you have to make the decision no one else can. But I'm counting on you to see this through.
Nice haircut. Sometimes we have to do what's right, regardless of our personal feelings.
Buckle up.
If we don't stop Thrawn, everything will be in vain. You have no power.
Anakin spoke highly of you.
I'm not here to discuss my past.
We have a lot of work to do.
Once a rebel, always a rebel.
Okay, 2 episodes. So it looks like they've picked up right where Rebels left off. Did you watch Rebels?
No, not Rebels, but I did watch the Clone Wars.
Okay, so you probably want to watch some Rebels because they have all. It looks like it's just another episode of Rebels or next season of Rebels. Just they've done it in live action instead of in cartoon.
Heroes will rise. Destinies will collide.
Who is that king?
And a rebellion will ignite.
Get ready.
Now! I did notice that there was a mural and it was like cartoonish. I think it was based off like Rebels, right?
Yeah, it was exactly the Rebels animation it looked like. I noticed in this one that there's no male characters except for the one in a hologram. I mean, the bad guy's a male. So I'm wondering, like, did they go feminist propaganda with this, or what is it? Because I don't think that Ahsoka needs to be feminist propaganda. I mean, Star Wars typically has had a lot of strong female characters. Leia, from the very beginning, was a great, strong female character, always well respected. Ahsoka, throughout the Clone Wars, no problem at all. She was a very well respected character. Ventress, great villain. Right? They had a lot of promise with, what was the one in the silver armor in the new movies? Gwendolyn Christie, I think, played her. She was like the big silver stormtrooper uniform.
Oh, Phasma.
Was it Phasma?
I think it was Phasma.
Could have done a lot more with her.
I wanted to learn more about her, but then she kind of... Did she die in the second one?
Yeah, because Ruin Johnson liked to ruin everything. They ruined Luke Skywalker. They ruined the fact that spaceships could just have a single droid and just fly into the Death Star and destroy it that way. I mean, everything about that movie was basically wrong. They destroyed Rey's lineage, which then they tried to retcon everything and say, oh, that the one move, the Holdo move, oh, that was a 1 in a billion shot. You can't do that again. Like, nice try, JJ, but no. So, but all the cartoons were really well done, and Dave Filoni did a great job with those. Jon Favreau is heavily involved in this. I don't mind a lot of female characters and things like that, but if you're doing it for the purpose of making it female characters to make something artificial, then it doesn't particularly work. So I hope that the characters are genuine and earned. But in the Clone Wars, I sure thought they were. In Rebels, I sure thought they were. I thought Rebels was very well done. I don't really have any major criticisms of Rebels, but we'll see. But overall, what's the guy's name? Ray Stevens? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to his performance. I've liked him in everything. He's passed away now, unfortunately. So I wonder if they killed him off in the series or what. I don't know where they're going to go with that.
Bits of his like performance, like in other movies and shows, and I thought he was really good.
Yeah, he's always really, really good. He was great in Dexter. All of the Dexter villains, for the most part, were incredible. John Lithgow, I thought, probably was the peak. Did you ever watch Dexter?
Dexter, no.
Oh, you should watch Dexter. It's great. It's going to take you a few episodes to get into, and Summer could not watch Dexter at night. We had to watch it like early, because it disturbed her sleeping and she would have nightmares and things. But he was really, really good in that series.
What do you think about Thrawn?
So Thrawn looking like Elon Musk, I think that's probably intentional because they're trying to villainize Elon Musk since he's bought Twitter and actually allowing free speech and not suppressing conservative views. So anytime that they can make a conservative a bad guy, and I'm concerned that maybe that Ray Stevens in this is they're portraying the white guy as the bad guy. I get a little bit tired of stuff like that, but if they have a nice balance and they do it well, and if it's about the story, then great. If it's about the agenda, then it's not going to be very good. And it's sort of like the third season of The Mandalorian was fairly well messed up because of agenda. And I think Jon Favreau has got that fixed for season 4 of The Mandalorian.
They're going back to how it was like in the first 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like each episode was its own story.
Yeah, that was good. The Boba Fett series, which was a little bit too meddled with, I think, as well. We all had a lot higher hopes than how that turned out, but I think that they can bring that around in a next season. Ming-Na Wen, forgive me if I've mispronounced her name, but she was the one that was also in what was that one with the Avengers in it? S.H.I.E.L.D. Did you ever watch those? She was really, really good in that. And I think she was good in it. I like the characters, but I think that the writing needs to be improved and not meddled with. I think if Kathleen Kennedy gets out of it and gets her finger off that stuff, then that will be a lot better. I'm still waiting for her to be gone from Disney, and I'm waiting for Disney to realize the get woke, get broke syndrome. The problem with that is that they have so much money that they're not going broke enough or fast enough in order to probably get the message. And they're so infected with the liberal mindset that they've forgotten and have gotten away from what really made Disney good, which was good, wholesome entertainment. I think Walt Disney would be rolling over in his grave, or probably is. I don't think he's sleeping well with a lot of the things that we're seeing. I like having a diverse group and audience. Like, there's plenty of movies where culturally they're appropriate, but where you're doing these switches just for the sake of switching, like the Snow White that's about to come out. It was a German fairy tale that Snow White is based on, and her name is Snow White. Her whole character is based on the fact that her skin was just this white, you know. Most people are not white like that, but she was like this pale, you know, just white, like porcelain type of character. And to change that, I mean, why don't just make a new character? Why do you have to destroy the old one in order to make a new one? Just do something else and do something different, I think. And because it's okay for white people to have their own culture too. It's okay for black people. Everybody, every different nation, Hispanic, all the nations around the world, Norwegian, African, Asian, Australian, everybody, Pacific Islander, you know, all these different distinct type of groups. Everybody should be able to celebrate their heritage. Just because somebody came from Germany or Italy, they should all be able to celebrate their heritage. And coming to the United States, you know, I'm a quarter Irish, a quarter German, a quarter Italian, and a quarter French. I am interested in like all four of those different cultures, but if I see any kind of pride in that, then I'm viewed as a racist or who knows what. And I just don't think that that's right. I think we should honor all history around the world. And of course, there are bad parts of history and evil parts, and almost everybody thinks that that's bad. Of course, you can find some jerk out there that thinks that, you know, some of these evil things in history were good and serve some purpose or whatever. But it's, you know, it's if it does serve a purpose, it's that we should learn not to do that, and that was wrong. And I think even growing up, because I'm Gen X, what are you, a millennial? Or is that what you're Gen Z? So is it Gen X, millennial, then Gen Z? So the millennials are like the Gen Y?
I think so.
A little bit. I think they lack a direction. I think Y, WHY, is maybe more appropriate for some of them, but you're Gen Z. Okay, and how old are you?
21.
You're 21? Yeah, so I'm 49. There's the gap, but I think we have a lot in common, and it's an interesting gap of my generation of coming from, because the baby boomers were in front of us, and those people, you know, the generation before me was the generation of Vietnam draft, and the generation that still understood and knows what World War II was, and had people, World War I veterans and people that lived through that coming up, and people from the Great Depression. When I was born, there people, you know, that a little bit older than I am now were around for the Great Depression and around for both of the world wars and the Korean War and Vietnam. And those were very different than, because once you hit the Desert Storm in the 90s, that war was a little bit different. It was a lot more technological war. The war in Iraq, different. Afghanistan, like a lot more troops and really fighting and suffering and those things. But each of those segments is just very different and produces very different type of people that came out of it. My observation of Gen X, which is my generation, is that most Gen Xers are not racist in any kind of way. And it's really annoying to be called racist when we know we're definitely not. Those type of things, and even being perpetuated now. Now you're not seeing the elimination of racism. Now you're seeing the pushing of racism and an agenda that is funded and politically rewarded by them accusing the other side of being racist and propagating racism and propagating the race narrative. At least Gen X we've all grown up without the racism. And now I think it's being seeded and refed, because we were all of the, you know, I did not grow up wealthy. I've worked the amount of that by this time most people have worked. I've worked 2 to maybe 3 lifetimes worth of the average person's normal work. That's how much and hard I've worked. Do you get sleep? And I'm like, sometimes I just don't. And I've put in 120-hour work weeks. More times than I can even count, and for more years than I can even count. And if most people work a 40-hour work week, to me that's like I can do 40 hours by Monday night, or, you know, like by Tuesday I'm at 40 hours. And it's, you know, I've just got a very hard work ethic, and I've built up and worked and done my education very well. And just because I graduated with a doctorate, you know, technically it's Dr. Palmer, just because I've done that, I still work to educate myself as much as possible. It's all day long, from the moment that I get up until the moment that I go to sleep, is working on trying to make everything better as much as possible and do as much good in the world that I can do. And it's interesting watching, because I remember the original Star Wars. I remember coming to the movie theater when Empire Strikes Back was released and having to wait in line for a couple of hours in order just to get in, because you couldn't buy advance tickets. You had to go to the theater to do it. You had to like call in, or actually you had to look at the newspaper. You had to buy the newspaper, was the first chore and the first task to find out. And everybody really bought the newspaper at that time, and it would be delivered. And so you'd get the paper, and then you'd open the paper and look at the movies. It was in a section in the newspaper, and you'd see the times, and then, or you could call the theater and ask, or you could wait, because when answering machines were first invented, movie theaters were some of the first places that got the answer machine that then played what movies there were. But you would have to go to the theater and hope it wasn't sold out. And I've driven to a lot of, or ridden at the time, I wasn't old enough to drive, and the movies would be just sold out, and you couldn't. And then what's the next one? And then we had to go to this movie instead, because these are all sold out. Or we could go at this time later, maybe, and then, well, can we buy tickets for tomorrow and things? And it was all of those things. But back then, movies were, you know, on point, especially through the 80s, when you had things like the first 3 Indiana Jones movies, and what Star Wars, what George Lucas and even Steven Spielberg did through those times, it was a golden age of making movies. Now, what's happening is Hollywood is resting on the laurels of that, of all that that was built, and now they're using it just purely for propaganda pieces. There's a Donald Duck cartoon encouraging buying war bonds and enlisting, even through World War II, and Donald Duck versus the Nazis and things, which were commissioned by the United States government in addition. But it's just gotten worse and worse and worse, and it's very left biased towards liberal agendas and things like that. And so that's why the Sound of Freedom movie, you know, it's 5 years old. They made that movie 5 years ago, and
so the director, or I think it might have been the producer, is like finally released it.
Mm-hmm. They crowdsourced it, and they took donations. You'll see at the end of the movie, like right while Jim Caviezel's message is playing, there's all these names going by of people that donated money or bought advance tickets or something like that, and got the movie funded. And there was a big backlash in the theaters that people were sabotaging the film, pulling the fire alarm, lighting for sprinklers or something like that, calling in bomb threats to try and get people to not go see that movie, having it play with errors in it, or no sound, or having an alarm go off, or turning the lights on through the whole movie, and really trying to sabotage it in a lot of different locations, and just purely trying to keep it out of the theaters and hassling the workers and the theater owners to not have it put in the theater. And if you watch that movie and think about, okay, who's trying to prevent this movie? What evil must enthrall them that they would try to prevent the Sound of Freedom from being playing or being released? So I'm looking forward to Ahsoka. Hopefully it will be good. We'll see you on the next episode. This is the Lawyer Dana Show.